Black Star Net Worth is.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
It's Thursday, April 30th, 2026. I'm Wesley Lowry. Roland will be joining us shortly. Here's what we've got coming up tonight on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Louisiana's congressional primaries, originally scheduled for May, have been postponed due to the Supreme Court ruling yesterday that undid a crucial component of the Voting Rights Act. We'll continue to break down what is one of the major stories in the ongoing attack on voting rights. Additionally, Roland will moderate a crucial and important panel in our ongoing coverage of domestic violence and the role of men in domestic violence and femicide. He's down in Shreveport, Louisiana, where that community is still grieving a brutal, horrific murder in which a father killed several of his children and crucially injured their mother. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered here on the Black Star Network. Louisiana's congressional primaries have been postponed from their originally scheduled date in May due to a Supreme Court ruling that invalidated a majority black congressional district. Early voting was already supposed to begin on Saturday for those primaries, set for May 16th. However, Republican Governor Jeff Landry issued an executive order to postpone the U.S. House primary following Wednesday's court ruling. Joining me now are Davin Roseborough, Deputy Director of the ACLU's Voting Rights Project, Advocate Gary Chambers, and Ashley Shelton, President and CEO of the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice. I want to start by going over to Gary, who I know is on the ground in Louisiana. What is the mood and what is the response to this action from the Supreme Court and now this aggressive action from Governor Jeff Landry? We know Louisiana has been ground zero for ongoing fights over enfranchisement and disenfranchisement of black voters. We know that it has long been one of the key battlegrounds as it relates to equity and justice. And now we are seeing it becoming one of the key places where our right to vote is going to be litigated and is being litigated. Gary, what is your response to the last few days, your reaction, and what do the folks around the country need to know?
Well, first they need to know that one of the fearless leaders of Louisiana, Ashley Shelton, and the Power Coalition led this charge to help create the second minority district here in Louisiana that gave us the ability to have that representation. Louisiana's not always had a second majority black congressional district. People are angry. They are upset. People are figuring out, what does this mean? We're getting orders from the Secretary of State, comments from the Attorney General, comments from the governor, comments from the Speaker of the House. There's a whole lot of conversation, not a lot of clarity. We don't know what map is going to be existing for the voters of Louisiana. We know that absentee ballots were already in the mail, which means that people have already cast ballots. Those votes are already in the bag. They're telling us those votes won't be counted. That's a level of confusion. People are going to vote on Saturday. There will be congressional candidates on their ballots. If you click that, will you be able to click it? We don't have any of those answers. I'm sure litigation is forthcoming, if not already filed in this matter. And so it's a ball of confusion created by the disaster of Republicans that continue to allow these racist tactics that have existed as long as Louisiana has existed to play out in our politics today.
Now, let's rewind. And you mentioned that Ashley was intimately involved with this, and so maybe she wants to come in here. Can we talk about what exactly happened and break down exactly what happened here in Louisiana? That Louisiana is a state that's about a third black, has 6 congressional districts. And can we talk about the creation of this new congressional district that would have been majority black, and then the legal fight that has played out since then?
Certainly. Thank you guys for having me this evening. So in Louisiana, Press Robinson was the named plaintiff in Robinson versus Landry. And so we fought to realize a second majority-minority congressional seat. And in that fight, in the midst of many fights, because we've been fighting this fight since 2022, we were actually able to realize a second seat that is now currently held by Congressman Cleo Fields. And what Calais, they intervened, and the Calais case, the Calais interveners said that the new map actually discriminated against them. And so in the fight for a fair map in the state of Louisiana, we had 9 non-black white interveners say that somehow a fair map discriminated against them. And then we saw this case play out last year. We defended this case in this, within the Supreme Court, defended by the Attorney General's office. And then we saw the Supreme Court not decide last year. And then we also saw, Janae Nelson have to come back the next year and defend this, but with the caveat of the Supreme Court asking how Section 2 didn't violate the 14th and 15th Amendments, which I will note is particularly cruel, given that those are the Reconstruction amendments that were created to protect minorities in this country, and they were being used to do the exact opposite. And so here we sit in this moment with the Calais decision, which, to be clear, eviscerates Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And what this means for Black voters, not only in Louisiana, because I want people to be really clear. This started out as a case about Louisiana and an additional congressional seat, and then what the subsequent ruling that we received yesterday, what it means is that Black voters and all minorities, which include women of every race and ethnicity as well, have could lose the ability to elect a candidate of choice at every level of government. And I think that people need to understand what that means and the reality of the fights that we're going to certainly see in the South for sure, and the fights that we've already seen play out in places like Texas and other states that are trying to vie and jockey for power. And I think, the thing that's really unfortunate is that the Supreme Court didn't even have the they wouldn't even stand in their evisceration of the Second Amendment. They said that the remedies for race were no longer necessary, and that somehow we all lived in some post-racial, country that there's not any Black or other person of color that I've ever met that has experienced this America where we are afforded all of our rights without the oversight of the federal government. And so this is a huge decision, and it's going to have sweeping implications. If you have a seat in your community right now that is held by a person of color, more than likely that's an opportunity seat that was protected by Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And that protection, as of yesterday, no longer exists.
So I want to just make sure to break it down. In Louisiana, again, it's a southern state, large Black population, about a third of the state's population is Black. 9 congressional seats. Historically, the vast majority of Black voters were crammed into 1 congressional seat. Due to advocacy, activism, work on the ground, a second congressional seat in the drawing of the districting was created, in which Black voters were significantly represented, where there are now 2 seats of the 9, representing a closer representation to the population of Black Louisianans. That was then challenged and taken to the Supreme Court. David, can you talk a little bit about what the court's argument was, what they were considering here, the distinction between whether this was a, quote, partisan gerrymander or whether this was a racial gerrymander, and this idea that this has now been flipped on its head, the argument that creating a congressional seat explicitly for the purpose of enfranchising historically disenfranchised Black voters, that they would now argue, as the majority of the court did, that in fact was somehow racially discriminatory.
Yeah, and it's as outrageous as it sounds. This is really the end of the project of the Roberts Court to slowly, piece by piece, take apart the Voting Rights Act, which was key to actually providing Black voters in the South the opportunity to elect candidates of choice. It was litigation under the VRA. Very few, if any, states in the South gave that up willingly. It's been a fight over decades. I've spent a lot of time with our case in Louisiana, the Milligan case, and Alabama didn't have a Black congressional representative until the 1990s, since Reconstruction. So what this did is it turns a statute that really has been the cornerstone coming out of the civil rights movement of being able to start moving toward a multiracial democracy, to allow Black voters and other voters of color in other parts of the country to be represented to some degree, even if not enough. And so this is really, it's really an affront to what Congress intended when they said, we're finally going to start taking the steps we need to have the multiracial democracy that the Reconstruction Amendments promise. And it's a cruel, I wouldn't say irony, I mean, it's really just a cruel statement that they have taken these amendments, which were created with race explicitly in mind, and said, no, this is part of a colorblind constitution. And because of that, we can't really consider the ongoing effects of even past discrimination that's so recent, where there's so many people, so many of our clients that lived through segregated schools, for instance, well into the late 60s and 70s. It's really a perversion of both those amendments and what Congress intended to do with the Voting Rights Act.
I was reading a piece by Adam Sewer in The Atlantic earlier today where he was breaking down and talking about this idea that key to the conservative justices argument was the suggestion that this was just a partisan gerrymander, that because Black voters are most likely to vote reliably democratically, right, that it would not be constitutional to say we are specifically drawing these districts to pack all of the Black voters into one district, but you are in fact able to say, well, we're just trying to pack all the Democratic voters, right? That it seemed to be this kind of bank shot where we pretend as if we do not know what we know about voter behavior and the reality of voting and what the impact would be here. That seems to be, in so many ways, the central tension point between so much of our battle publicly right now over issues of race and how we remedy historical injustice. So this question of, are we allowed to consider disparate impact? Are we allowed to understand the way, I mean, it's what Derek Bell would have called critical race theory, understand the way that race embeds itself into otherwise colorblind policy or law? Or are we forced to be quote unquote colorblind, in which we pretend as if race does not exist and that the actions that we are taking are not going to have impact in those ways? The fear now, and we've seen this alarm from Black journalists, from Black activists, from Black lawyers, has been what state legislatures, state governments are now going to be empowered to do across the country if previously they had this restriction on some of their behavior that it's seeming now the handcuffs have come off. Can you talk a little bit about specifically what Louisiana has now done or begun doing, as well as what the fear is about what this could mean in districts across the South, whether it be Mississippi, whether it be Georgia, Louisiana, and other places where we know Black political power has been systemically, historically siphoned off and reduced, and in some ways those efforts been restrained by the Voting Rights Act, which has now been further weakened?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a break glass moment. There's no question about it. As someone who is a litigator, I'm often maybe on the more careful side about how I state things. But there's no way around this. This is the final step in really taking apart the key law that protected the hard-won gains. Literally, fought over blood and people's lives to create the Voting Rights Act. And the fact that it is being turned on its head in this way, and that partisanship can say, as long as you say the magic words that this is for partisan reason, it doesn't matter how much you're hurting Black voters. That's fine, since they happen to be Democrats in certain places, right? Which is part of the whole point of the Voting Rights Act, that when voting is polarized so much, that you need those protections because opportunities to participate are still not equal for Black voters. So yes, we are going to do everything we can to stand up and fight with all the tools we have necessary, and that certainly needs to go beyond litigation, advocacy, organizing, everybody. It really is a break glass moment, but the effects of this are going to be felt throughout the country.
Well, and we're already seeing it in Louisiana. And so just to be hyper clear, Ashley and Gary, we're supposed to have we're in a midterm election year right now, right? We're already seeing primaries play out across the country. Louisiana has a primary this year for which the election day is May 16th, so 17 days from now. And what we have seen within the 24 hours of this Supreme Court ruling is Republican Governor Jeff Landry come out and say he wants to potentially alter or postpone, push off the current primary for the current midterm fight, which is going to determine, in part, who controls Congress for the next 2 years of the last 2 years of the Trump administration. Right? And he is saying, hold on, I want to potentially redraw the maps now based on what the Supreme Court ruling is. Actually, am I understanding that correctly? And is that what's happening in Louisiana?
Yes, and so there's so much voter confusion, and I think that we have to talk about how important and critical election administration is to an effective election. And he is now saying that he is going to pull the congressional House seats from the ballot, but what will still be on the ballot May 16th will be everything else, which would include 5 constitutional amendments, a Supreme Court seat, a Louisiana Supreme Court seat, 2 Public Service Commission seats, and several local ballot measures, depending on where you live in the state. And so those things will continue to, and again, everything is changing in real time. So as of this moment, what we're hearing is that will be what will remain on the ballot. But to Gary's earlier point, we have no idea, can voters still vote on the ballots as they currently exist? Many voters have already voted. If you are, a senior or a serviceman or woman across, working across this, anywhere where you're stationed, and you had sent in your absentee ballots have already been received. And so I think that there's a big question about where are we? And I think that, there's been so much talking, to Gary's point, and, and the governor and the AG are saying they have to do this because the map has been enjoined. But I remind folks that the legislature is currently serving and, and making and moving policies, and they're all seated on an enjoined map as well. So I think that there's some things that we got to talk about. And I think that this voter confusion definitely sets up the opportunity for more litigation, because again, we are already here. We are already in the midst of an election. We are already starting early voting on Saturday. And so so now organizations like mine are being forced to push out all of this information. People think the election has been canceled. That's what people think. And so we are trying to, hurry and try to understand and put out graphics and share information with the public about the fact that as we understand it today, because it could change, right? This is where we are, which is that they're going to pull the House congressional seats from the election until they can redraw, new maps that, as we're hearing, would be a 5-1 map or potentially a 6-0 map. I think the thing that's interesting is that, if they do a 6-0 map, there's so many Black people in the state of Louisiana that they actually do themselves harm if the goal is to have, a trifecta of, or to have a complete, a completely white Republican delegation, that they run the risk of, there's so many Black people in our state that somebody's going to lose at some point. And especially if you look at Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Shreveport, Alexandria in the center of the state. At some point, somebody's going to have to reckon with Black voters, in this state, and that you can run and play some games, but ultimately you will be held accountable by these Black voters in our state.
Gary, I want to go back to you. We're in this moment, and I think back a few years where we would have all this talk about whether or not we were in a third Reconstruction after Barack Obama was elected, right? There was this feeling, it seems baffling now to think back that far, where we thought, were we entering a post-racial America with something different happening? Now look, viewers here and followers of you understand and know that that's not what happened, right? Roland wrote a book called White Fear. I've written a book called American White Lash. We've seen and talked about the ways that over the course of 50, 60 years, these crucial civil and voting rights that were established, these victories of the civil rights movement have been eroded and pushed back. And yet, even with that understanding, it is pretty remarkable to think about. Even those of us who have seen it coming, who've followed the Roberts courts, who've written about these issues, the idea that we have, in the last 10 years, seen the final two major pillars of the Voting Rights Act essentially undone. We've watched a state like Louisiana in 2026 attempt to give some appropriation of approximate representation to its black citizens, and seen those efforts not only opposed, but completely thrown out to the extent that we may end up with a less equitable map than existed beforehand afterwards, and the Supreme Court to pretty overwhelmingly dictate this. What do you make of this moment we are in right now? Someone was talking to me earlier today about this idea that we're in another period of redemption that comes after Reconstruction, that we're in a period where white supremacy is lashing back at the perceived gains. And here we are, again in 2026, seeing crucial components of the Voting Rights Act by the Supreme Court being thrown out, opening the door potentially to the erasure of majority black districts across the South, which potentially could see losses in congressional representation and other black elected officials that we haven't seen since the civil rights era. Gary, what do you make of all this?
You know, none of this surprises me. If you've been active in the fights that we've been in for the last 10 or 15 years, from city council meetings when Alton Sterling was killed here in Baton Rouge, the lawyer who represented Alton Sterling's killer, Blaine Salamone, was appointed in a vote 7-2 tonight as the parish attorney of East Baton Rouge Parish. I have been watching local government, white Republicans aggressively oppose the progress of black people. I live in a city where black people make up over 50% of the population, but we had one parish-wide seat that was black, and now we have none. I live in a state that consistently oppresses and so suppresses black people. I live in a city, again, that is over 56% black, and 10 years ago we were at 2% in city parish contracts, but we pay a large portion of the taxes in this parish. And so these disparities that exist have always existed. I think that what I think is happening today is that more of us are being awakened to the moment because of how dramatic the racism has boiled up to at this point. But what I hope this teaches us is that we have to stay on the fight every day in every way, that those who are aggressive and loud and agitating, that you need that, because the energy that is up against us is aggressive, it is loud, it is agitating, it is oppressive. And so you cannot go up to that like a little sweet church lady praying. My Bible tells me that the violent suffered violence and the violent take it by force. And so if we are going to be oppressed and subjected to this, then this is the moment where we fight back. Jeff Landry has 5 constitutional amendments on the ballot. The whole country needs to be helping move voters in Louisiana to kill his 5 constitutional amendments. This is not a time to lick our chops and say, oh, woe is me, how did we get here? This is a time to say this shit will not stand. We are going to do everything in our power to secure future seats and to hold on to the power that we have. There are DA races in Louisiana. The Caddo Parish District Attorney is up for re-election. There's a black man running for District Attorney in East Baton Rouge Parish. There are people that need the vote of the black electorate in this state, and we need to mobilize them this year so that Jeff Landry understands that the people see you and we're coming for you.
I think we've got Roland now with us. He's down on the ground in Louisiana, making his way to Shreveport for tonight's event, continuing our coverage of black men, mental health, domestic violence. But Roland, you went long on this on the show last night. This has been a key portion of our coverage. Speak to me about what's happening in Louisiana.
Well, here's the first thing. So Ashley and Gary there. First of all, here's the deal. Has anybody filed a lawsuit against Governor Jeff Landry, the action that he's taking today? Has that happened yet?
No, it has not happened yet. Mostly because of the fluid nature of what's going on right now. But no one has filed just yet. Pending, but not filed.
Are y'all expecting that NAACP or Black Lives Matter or someone is going to file a lawsuit saying that how in the hell can you postpone an election Voting is already started.
So yeah, no, I think there's a bunch of us that are working with our lawyers to, like, again, understand what our options are. I mean, Power Coalition has been fighting for voting rights in the state of Louisiana since its inception, and we're going to continue those fights. And so we are definitely working with partners, including NAACP and so many other ACLU and others, to try to understand exactly what power we have in this moment.
One of the things that is Gary still there?
I'm here.
Gary,
Yep.
this is an absolute wake-up call, I believe, for a whole bunch of Democratic Party strategists, other black folks, and let me be real clear, Congressional Black Caucus members who have not been going hardcore when it comes to these donors and funders, when it comes to putting money on the ground, when it comes to investing in turnout strategy, because what I have been saying, and you've been saying, and Ashley's been there as well, is that we have to be maximizing our turnout. I think people have to understand what we're now faced with as we speak. We are literally dealing with folks who absolutely want Jim Crow 2.0. And if we continue to sit on the sidelines and choose the couch and listen to a bunch of these yahoos talking on YouTube, people don't understand. This is not just losing political, individuals who are in power. We're going to be talking about losing billions of dollars that flow back to our community because we have black representation.
You are absolutely right, Roland. I think that number one, watching you bounce around on these Louisiana roads tells you that Jeff Landry is focused on the wrong thing today. He needs to be fixing roads and bridges in the state instead of taking away the vote of black people in Louisiana. But the reality is, this is the time to invest. This is the time to gear up for the fight. This is the time for us to show the power of black voters in this state. If Jeff wants to fight, we need to give it to him. And so I would encourage members of the CBC. I would encourage the black entertainers, the black sports folks, everybody who gives a damn to start making your way to the Louisiana legislature. They're still in session between now and June. They're going to, at some point, bring these bad maps. We need to be in their faces, and we need to show people who these racist bigots are. We need to show every one of the people who vote for this, and then we need to have the resources. Power Coalition needs to have the resources. Vote needs to have the resources so that they can send mailers into these people's districts right now in this legislative session, so that they can robocall into their districts right now, so that their voters know that your racist state senator, your racist state representative is down there making an ass of you, and it's eventually going to come to the point where we end up losing economic opportunities as a result of this. What needs to happen is the NBA needs to say, we're not going to play no all-star games in any state that takes away the vote or a congressional member from black people. The all-star game, whatever the festivals are, Essence needs to consider whether they want to be located in Louisiana if Louisiana is not going to give them the 30% of the state black representation, because they create millions of dollars of economic impact for this state every summer. And that festival, if it leaves the 4th of July, there's an economic drain in the state of Louisiana. And I want you to come back, Essence, after we put Jeff out, but maybe there needs to be a pause and a stay on anybody doing any type of activities in the state of Louisiana if they are going to deny a third of the state the ability to serve in Congress. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that you're robbing us of. And Roland already riding around here bouncing and needs some, we need some infrastructure for these roads right here.
Gary, I know you have to go. I certainly appreciate it. Gary, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Davin, I do want to ask you a question.
Thank you.
Because listen, y'all have been fighting the good fight. The lawyers have been in the courtrooms battling it out. But to Gary's point, y'all do need people rising up, putting pressure, public pressure, protesting, because you have to be able to focus public sentiment on what the issue is and not just sort of make this as esoteric legal discussion.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I say I'm a litigator. That's my particular skill here. But I think the organizing is more important, honestly. The advocacy, getting people out in the streets. People should be furious about this. This can't be the lawyers alone, and I'm sure it won't be. It hasn't been so far. It's absolutely just so important that this be a moment where we push on all the levers: litigation, advocacy, organizing, communications, and speak to what this means to people. As you've been saying, yeah, this affects the people who are making the decisions, who represent our communities, who make the choices about jobs and roads and economic opportunity. And everybody's got to realize they have a stake in it. And this is a do or die moment. This is a really, really important moment. And so, yes, the litigators will be there, but I couldn't agree more. I would be proud to partner with amazing organizers like Ashley and Gary, and we need them more than ever in the fight, and like they've been in for many years.
And Devin, what's so insane about this Supreme Court decision? This is the same Supreme Court that literally allowed for this congressional seat to move forward just a couple of years ago. So it's like, wait a minute, this is the same court. I mean, there was a massive legal fight against Republicans, and the same one. And so what these white conservatives did here in Louisiana is say, oh, let's try to find a second bite at the apple. In fact, this is a third bite. They tried the second bite and got rebuffed there as well. That's what's so insane about what the Supreme Court ruled, because they ruled on this very seat just recently.
I agree. It's just absolute madness. And now we see the effects. We see what they've unleashed. Ashley was just describing it. And yes, there will. I can say pretty confidently that there's going to be legal action coming against the suspension of the primary. It's the opinion is so cowardly and dishonest in how it tries to say the decisions just a couple of years ago, the decision in our case out of Alabama, Milligan, where it seemed like the Voting Rights Act was maybe going to survive. And it's just dishonest, the way that they've tried to say, well, no, this we just weren't really presented with the right questions. They reached out and grabbed this opportunity to finally finish their project of taking the consideration of race, of taking the legal tools out of people's hands, and it's an absolute disgrace.
So here's what everybody watching to understand. We're talking Louisiana, but Republicans are putting pressure on Alabama Governor Kay Ivey to call a special session to wipe out the seat of Congressman Shamari Figures as well as Congresswoman Terry Sewell. They're putting, you see Tennessee, Senator Marsha Blackburn, who's running for governor of Tennessee, they're putting pressure on them because they want to wipe out the congressional seat that covers the Memphis area. And so I need everybody watching to understand, this is going to target, and listen to me clearly, this is Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Arkansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. The old Confederacy is back. This is about crushing Black power. And people have to understand, it is the only reason you have the largest delegation of African Americans in Congress today is because of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And this is not just going to be Congress. This is going to impact Supreme Court seats across the country. It's going to impact state seats in these same states. It's going to impact county commissioners, city council, school board, water district. What this is about, and I have been saying this, my book White Fears about it, this is all about attacking Black political power because the right wing is angry with the advancements of African Americans, and what they want to do is cripple or simply eradicate Black political power for the next 100 years. Absolutely what they did after Reconstruction, and we are now having to live through it. And so, folks, this is all hands on deck. This is no sitting on the sidelines. If you're in Louisiana, you should be emailing and hitting Ashley right now saying, how can I get involved? Because I'm telling y'all, this is the battle for this generation. No more talking about Fannie Lou Hamer and what they all did. That battle was then. This is the battle that we're dealing with right now. And so we appreciate y'all being with us on the show. Thank you so very much. And we're going to keep this fight going. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
All right, Wesley, I am pulling up to the church here in Shreveport for our conversation that we're going to be having on the issue of mental health. So let me step in. We got folks here who have already been waiting for us to have this conversation. And so let me step in. Where am I headed? All right, here we go. Okay. All right.
So as you guys know, Roland is he's making his way into an event in Shreveport, Louisiana that he is going to be hosting, moderating, and then we're going to be bringing to you all live as part of our ongoing coverage following what has been a miserable, tragic, horrific set of stories. Stories of black men who have taken the lives of their wives, of their children, and so we're here in Shreveport specifically to convene a community gathering because that community is grappling with the story of a man there who took the lives of 8 children, as well as shot his partner, the mother of many of those children. And so Roland's going to be co-hosting a event there on the ground. We're going to be bringing it to you live for the remainder of the show tonight. But before that, we're going to get into a quick break. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
What's good, y'all? This is Doug E. Fresh, and you're watching my brother Roland Martin Unfiltered as we go a little something like this. Hit it. It's real.
Here we go. 3, 2.
All right, folks, we're here in Shreveport. Glad to be here. How y'all doing? Glad to see everybody here. After the tragic shooting that took place a couple of Sundays ago, Dr. Kevin Washington, who was on our show, said that he wanted to do something here, and I said, well, we'll come down, actually broadcast this event. So it started about 30 minutes ago. And so, Kevin, why don't you introduce the folks who are sitting on the panel here? We're on the air, we're live. Let's go.
All right, I want to introduce you all to Shreveport, Roland Martin. Give it up for Brother Roland for agreeing to come to the port city. That's a powerful piece. We have the DA, District Attorney Stewart, is here with us. Give it up for DA Stewart. We have Principal of Woodlawn High School, Brother Grady, G.O. Q-Sci-Fi. We have the Shreveport representative, the student coordinator. We have Brother Marvin Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. And we have Derek Henderson, So give it up for Derek Henderson. Oh, wait a minute. We got the chief of the polices in Shreveport. The chief, give it for Dwayne. So that's where we are. We have many other people in this space that have done great and wonderful things. We have educators. We have people who have transformed many of us in this room. With Dr. Hicks, former president of Grambling State University. There's several people in this space, brother. But we want to give it up. Thank you, Roland, for being here. And we're talking then about black men and mental health.
This has been, and Kevin, you can stay up. This has been a very, very difficult 3 weeks. And obviously, it's been difficult for this city. No one wants to go national with a story like this. And so just a sense from you, what have been the conversations? What have folks been saying as a result of this absolutely tragic, heinous shooting? 8 kids left dead, 2 women shot. Police, this man who committed the crime, he's dead. What have folks been talking about? And what have they been feeling and saying? Anybody can jump in. Is that mic on?
This happened in our neighborhood of our school and at Woodlawn. And even though none of the kids had made it to Woodlawn yet, I have several students who were related to the victims. And so we've had to give them excuses out of school. We've had to understand, give them work excuses. They don't have to come. And understand where they are emotionally with the tragedy. So it has been real quiet around the school. It has been real eerie, for lack of a better term, not like it has been before. What I was talking about earlier, how we were normalizing things as normal, I think the kids understand this is way not normal. This is not normal at all. So I think this is really taking some of my kids back, and hopefully they understand the magnitude of what had happened.
This took place on a Sunday. Did you have folk available for students or your parents on Monday?
We did. We reached out to like I said, we have family members that are there. So some of the stakeholders in the school did reach out, and some of the students did go to the schools, elementary schools. So I know for sure they had counselors available with those schools.
So we've had people who have been. So we've had people who have expressed that they are overwhelmed, outraged, but they also are encouraged by conversations like that we're having today, centered around black men as it relates to mental health. It is an issue that's plaguing our community, and we know that if we want to stabilize our society, if we want our city to grow, then conversations like this, efforts like this have to happen, and it has to come from us. And so, those are the responses that I've gotten. People have been overwhelmed, outraged, but they also are encouraged by efforts like this, where we can come together and start pooling some resources to address this issue and hopefully to create a path to move forward.
I think at first it was a reaction of domestic violence. And that's been a big conversation in our community recently. But as it went on, I think people realized there was a mental health component to this. And people trying to wrap, if you're a parent, trying to wrap around what mentally happened to a person that was literally sitting on the steps watching his kids play one day, and then the next day he takes all their lives. And so that mental health component, and so that's why we're here, because as you know, mental health is an art, not a science. If you have a broken arm, you can fix it. Mental health is a lot different, and trying to figure out, okay, well, what can we do? What can we build upon to make sure this doesn't happen again? can't change what has happened, but how, as a community, can we come together? What resources can we put together? How can we educate ourselves? How can we reach out to try to see these actions before they happen and stop it from the result we had?
But here's the thing right there. I want to stay right there because when I talked about that, after the tragic murder-suicide in Virginia with former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax shooting and killing his wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, there were a number of people mad, upset with me saying, it's not mental health. And I'm going, but it is. And they were upset, they were mad, and a lot of it was rage. And I kept saying, well, if the professionals say it's mental health, if law enforcement say it's mental health, if the judges say it's mental health, well, how in the hell you can get mad at me because I'm saying it's mental health? The point is to, if we're saying protect black women, somebody wrote a piece who was critical of our panel discussion, and I said, well, you wrote a piece and you had no experts in it, you had no clinicians in it, you just giving your opinion. And I said that if we were saying protect black women, we want them to live, we don't want the kids impacted, then you're going to have to deal with what's happening between the ears of individuals who either shoot, kill, or beat women. Something is happening between their ears. And so that has to be confronted and dealt with. Otherwise, we're only just expressing pain and outrage and not confronting what still is the problem. Anyone can speak to that?
Well, what I've been hearing, Brother Roland, of course, is a need for unity. And out of this tragedy, the call for unity now exists like it never has in the city of Shreveport.
But explain that. When you say a call for unity, what does that mean?
What we have here today. Without that tragedy, could we say all of us would be in this room together? Can we say that Roland Martin would be in Shreveport without that tragedy? So that tragedy has produced the unity that we are now coming together to talk about and try to form.
But does the tragedy, but the question then becomes, you have a tragedy. And what often happens, and I've covered numerous stories over my 30-plus year career, what often happens, just like with domestic violence, after something happens 2 weeks, 4 weeks, a month or two, it sort of just dissipates. So the question is, unity is one thing, but I think what is critically important is how do you build infrastructure in this city, and not just in this city, other places as well, where it's a continuation. So if we're talking about churches and schools, if we're talking about DAs, if we're talking about police departments, that has to be there because this state, domestic homicide is you're number 2 in the country. This is a problem. This ain't just Shreveport. This is a problem for the state and the country. 22,000 phone calls are made every day to domestic violence hotlines. So the question is, how is that now saying 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, we have things still in place? Go ahead.
Okay, so years ago, not too long ago, and the chief remembers this, we had an incident in Queensboro where somebody died, and they died because it was a mental health issue that turned into a criminal matter, and he died. So they created a unit. They have a unit at the Shreveport Police Department now that when officers have a situation, instead of just arresting a person, they call this mental health unit out to come and deal with the situation. Okay, so that's some action that came out of an event. In this event, we even had to fine-tune it now. So I agree with you. Domestic violence is an issue in this area, but the sheriff has just opened up a domestic violence unit here. We help support that domestic violence unit. This next week, we're having 2 forums on domestic violence.
So I want you to put a pin right there. So explain that. What is that domestic violence unit? What is that?
So what happens is 2 different categories. You have the civil category where somebody comes to get a protective order. Okay, they get a protective order and they go back home. Now they're going to a law enforcement agency that can take it and turn it into a criminal case. You have an attorney on staff, okay, and you have a domestic violence person there to help them with resources at that time. So instead of having a gap between the action and the court, you now filling in the blanks between that time and narrowing it down. You're creating ways for people who are having issues to reach out and get help. And it's growing on a weekly basis here. So now the public is realizing this is something we have to deal with. We got homicides down, okay? We have other violent crimes down, but this is something that we need to put more actions. You have citizens coming forward, offering money, offering support. You have professionals now coming forward, offering and volunteering. So the more we get the public involved in it, we may not get it down to zero, but the number should come down.
So when a person is going through the court system, and that's already happened, Chief, your office is on the front line because if something happens, they get a phone call. They're now arriving on the scene. And Capital B did a story, and I was reading it on the way over about a woman who called, and she called multiple times, and police came out multiple times. What is your process? People who don't understand, if someone calls 911, it's a domestic violence situation. What's your protocol in that case?
It is a high priority call. Officer will immediately be dispatched, go to the scene, evaluate things, first determine whether anyone has been injured or not and seek the appropriate medical help. Then evaluate the circumstance thereon, and if an arrest needs to be made, if there are signs of violence, then I think it's our protocol to do whatever is necessary to make sure that doesn't continue. And I'm glad that finally we are all coming together because we realize there are many resources out there to help people that people don't know about. And if we can get that to the forefront, I think it helps. But even more importantly than that, and using our mass incident that occurred a few weeks ago as an example, when you talked about mental health, certainly there is a growing need for that in our community. The morning of when this happened, when I arrived on the scene and began to work the crowd, it would just amaze me how many people that I talked to that knew the one who committed this horrible thing, that talked about his mental condition way before that. But what I didn't hear was any action that had taken place prior to then to bring that to someone's attention to get the appropriate help this man needed before he had a total neurological chemical breakdown that caused him to go in the direction that he did. And to go along with that, what I was hearing from the community was many incidents of domestic-related incidents that was a sure sign of things progressing along. I ain't going to say to the point that it got to, but that it was getting worse instead of better. These are things that law enforcement in the community, we that are public servants, don't know about, but there are family members and others that know about it, but don't take action prior to it getting to the catastrophe that it did. We're so proud. We recognized some time ago that every incident is not necessarily an incident that deserves an arrest. That won't fix the problem. So we've partnered and now is able to, when officers go out on the scene and, violence hadn't occurred at that point, and we determined that someone probably had or is having some kind of neurological issue, that we can summon professionals to come to that scene right then and find some other way to try to resolve it other than putting someone in jail.
Chief Smith, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Kevin, if you could speak to that point. He goes out and people are telling him what different instances, but no one said anything. So part of this, as we're talking about how do we confront this issue of domestic violence, which is why we've had all these conversations, it really requires folk to be, one, paying attention, armed with information, and know how to actually start a conversation. Speak to that because if all these folks heard things and knew things, no one did anything or said anything.
So several things happens, right? First of all, we have to recognize that Louisiana not only leads in this idea of IPV, but also leads in capital punishment. It also leads, it's also one of the lowest in education, the disconnect. Let's deal with all those factors that creates a condition around which you have somebody becoming violent. Now the other thing, brother student, is it's clear is that, I want to say this, all mental health is not good mental health. If it does not fit the population, and you use a good classic example, and the example was that the broken bone therapy is to the soul or spirit what a cast is to a broken bone. And if the person that is putting the particular cast on the body has no knowledge of what the bone looked like prior to its breakage, then the cast will be put on in a manner that would deform the particular body. Same thing then for therapy. Because if a therapist doesn't understand what it means to be who we are, and what happened is that when I was beginning to learn about interpartment violence in my graduate program, and they gave us these particular activities to go through, and they said, listen to what's being said. And it was a black man clearly talking about how he was aggressing against his spouse. And I began to point out what I was hearing was being said there, and he mentioned race and racism in the conversation. And so when I mentioned that, the people that were teaching me discounted what I was saying. And I was clearly saying that part of what's happening here is about race, racism, and oppression that they responded to. They said, no, he's really an aggressive black man, aggressing against, at that time, it was the person in hypothet was a non-black woman. And so my point then is that not only are we talking about the issue of in general, what can we do? But if I report somebody and I did say, go to this therapist, are they going to understand what's happening? Black men are not going to therapy for one reason. One of them is that because they're concerned about, do you understand what's going on with me? Secondarily, do I have access to you? And thirdly, is their understanding of what it means to be who I am. So the community has to do a better job. When we see something, say something. Also, we have to do a better job of making sure that people are trained. That's how you and I met at Texas A&M, the idea of me training in psychology. And one of the problems that I ran into was talking about culture in the context of mental health, which is one of the first programs you and I did together on multiculturalism at Texas A&M. And so I'm suggesting that we just can't say report somebody to mental health, but to the services. We have to be able to also say that is a service commensurate with the population that we engage in. Does it meet their needs? And I'm very clear that, again, all therapy ain't, abundantly correct, good therapy. If you don't understand what's happening with me. So we have to do a better job of training individuals, Brother Stewart, Brother Smith, in this space of how to deliver culturally competent services. Secondly, we have to be able to understand what does it mean to have these patterns of behavior that exist. And some things we accept as normal, which is your question, is not normal. If somebody's beginning to walk off the ledge, well, how can we begin to talk them back off the ledge in a manner that's consistent with who they are? Thirdly, we have to recognize that there's a lot of self-medication going on. And we're self-medicating together. Don't understand that self-medication is problematic. If you are mixing a particular drug that's designed to help you with stress or ADHD, and you combine that with marijuana, you are now rewiring the brain in a manner that is making you go into a volatile position, and you already were fragile. Let me be clear. I grew up with my man saying, don't push me, because I'm close to the edge, right? That's clear. And then another brother comes along years later saying, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. What are they saying? That there's something that's disrupting my spirit, my psyche. And I need somebody to come in and intervene. And we have to be clear. We just can't say, go to services. The question is, are we critiquing the services that they're getting that is consistent with their needs, their desires, and their particular aspirations?
We also can't tell somebody. See, this is, go ahead. See, one of the reasons why I've been, again, folk have been upset, mad, upset, I don't care, because I'm understanding what the problem is. It's easy to put on Instagram or Threads, go seek help.
That's it.
Well, one, if I don't know where to go, I can't seek help. Two, if I don't have health insurance, I don't even understand. So that's why it drives me crazy when people just say that. And again, that's easy to say. But the issue is, how do you actually do it? And when we talk about, there was some others who said that, well, you're dismissing this as mental illness. First of all, I never even used that phrase. And I think part of this conversation that we have to understand is that, so let's just say where I'm standing, this is the mental illness end of the conversation. So this is schizophrenia, suicide ideation, this is bipolar, all that sort of stuff. Your end, Kevin, your end is anxiety, stress, and all of that. Well, in order, you got to go, that end, I call that the mental health end. This is the mental illness end. But it's all on the mental health spectrum. And so people are going, you're making excuses. No, you have to acknowledge that if there's an individual who has an anger problem, why does he have an anger problem? Go ahead.
So I believe in pathology a lot. And so a lot of these behaviors are kind of pattern behaviors, right? And so I used to work in domestic violence, and what you will see is if the father is aggressive and there's a son in the situation, then there's a good chance that the son will pattern after his dad, and when he gets into a relationship, he will start to exhibit some of those patterns, as well as if the wife is passive and she has a daughter, then she emulates or takes that position in her relationship. So there are indicators, right, that we can probably look at more closely as it relates to 100% of the resources that we have to address domestic violence actually goes to the victim, and I think rightfully so. But when I worked in domestic violence in this area, you know, the perpetrators look like me, right? And
right, and see that has always been, and I've said this, you know, when I was seeing and when Chris Brown attacked Rihanna, I was filling in for Campbell Brown, and every conversation, there were women on the air that were talking about protect the woman, get her to safety, know how to leave, and I agree with all of that. But when I decided to host, I said I want an all-male panel. You thought I had asked the craziest thing in the world. And I literally said, if men are committing 96% of domestic violence cases, at some point, we're going to have to talk about what is going on with men. And folk were fighting me on that. Folk were fighting me in this case here. And I said, y'all, you can't tell me y'all need to protect black women if I do not confront what's happening with men. There's no way around that. So the point that you just raised, I want to ask you in school. So you're in school. How are you, as you're looking at students, how do you look at when you see a second or third grader who has anger outbursts on the playground or in the classroom? How do you handle that? Because you can track that behavior in second and third grade to fifth, sixth, ninth, 10th, and it ends up being what you're talking about, what happens when they graduate from high school and now when they're in a relationship, because we are seeing higher incidents of domestic violence among girls, elementary school through high school. That's a fact.
So I did used to work in elementary school, and that is true. You can track those behaviors. Now in the high school, even today, we all, a majority of us in here were raised, don't hit women, right? That's what you raised from knee high all the way up. It's amazing to me now to see young men, what they call square up, put up their set against a girl. And it's amazing to me, like, and in that moment, we go, you know, we do handle our business, we talk to the young man, and I'm proud of the men I have on my campus that can reach this young man and talk to him and say, look, you're going to get this discipline, but let's talk about why you feel like it's okay that you can square up with this girl like she's a boy. Something is not happening, and I have to talk to my teachers because they get frustrated because what we say, that should be taught where? At home. Well, look, guys, we're in a position now, we can't wait to that. We got to address this here on campus.
So when that happens, and the men of your campus talk to them, what's next? What happens next?
So,
I say that's the gap.
right. So, and that's something that we are working on, and it's here and now in the real time, that we are working with community partners that come and, because we're not equipped, we're educators. Like,
Right.
we go to school for education.
Right.
So we have to be cognizant that we can't do this work by ourselves. We have to reach out to a community partner, wraparound services. We can bring professionals. Hey, mama, I don't know what's going on, but little Johnny trying to fight this young lady.
But here's why I say what's next. Because this is where I need our people to understand where voting and politics connects with funding and resources, because school boards need to allocate the resources in the schools for you to deal with that. So when people tell me, you always talking about voting, I'm like, yes, because that is a distribution method of resources. And so I want people to understand, police chief, somebody calls, that's public. That's public dollars. The officers. If somebody files, the DA, that's public. If they go to jail or you pick a diversion program, that's public. If they go to the state prison, that's still public. So what I'm saying to our people, what we need from you is to say, this is what I need in my school. Y'all then have to roll up on the school board and say, principal needs this. Y'all should be allocating resources to deal with mental health, elementary school, junior high, high school. And so that's how, to me, how all this is connected. And so community is one thing, but we can't leave out all of these different pieces. And I think a lot of times we try to have this conversation, well what can the church do? No, church has a role. Community groups have a role. That's right. Black male groups have a role. Right. Everybody has a role, but we can't leave out also where the resources are. That also that can give you what you need and deal with the problem then. Because having a quick conversation with a young brother, clearly that's something going on that's far deeper than just they're fighting on the playground. Wow. And I think that's part of our problem, is that we're having short, finite, quick, in the moment discussions to deal with far deeper problems that manifest themselves later on.
That's right. So we enjoy actually dealing with the symptoms due to the thing. We buy medication in the box, it says for the symptom due to the common cold. We don't want to deal with the problem. So I love how you couch the conversation as being the holistic one. We have people that bring actually culturally responsive solutions. And many people actually are afraid of that because they're afraid of how we may lose some dollars. But if the issue is about a population that has certain experiences, we must then be responsive to that population and give them what they need. Don't give me some particular pizza with mushrooms when I'm allergic to mushrooms. Give me what I desire and what I need. So, principal, you need to be able to request services that you know are going to be responsive to the needs of the population. We've been researching this all over the country, and it's amazing how we can do this everywhere, but it's hard to do some of those things at home, responsive to the population. The second thing I want to mention here, as we go into what you, Brother Derek, is understand that males and females typically deal with problems differently. Whereas a female in general, this is generalization, may talk, have a conversation, may go back and forth, may banter. It's not but so much bantering men are going to do with one another, males. It's going to be, so what you want to do? You want to take it outside? Right? You want to take it to the grass? Right? It becomes that. That is something about the wiring genetically about being physical, so we see that happening. So when you talk about a male aggressing against a female, it's like even though I get that it may be a female, it's but so much bantering I'm going to do. So we have to be able to help not only the idea of understanding gender in relationships, but also help people understand how they can regulate their emotions, what's pushing you to that point. And if we don't teach that from our perspective, because we get these wonderful models, I get them, well, just say no, right? If you just do this, right? That is not going to resolve what's happening, because not only is it about my emotions, but it's about the things that I have to encounter. I have to encounter a person who may be in a household who is underemployed. He comes in angry and upset. Have to deal with the issue of the fact that though as a black male I bring home $1, that dollar is about 70% of the whole dollar, whereas a white man brings home the entire 100% of that dollar. I got to deal with the dynamics around the issue of I can't get a FICO score to move in any direction positive, right? I have to deal with all these things are compounded. And so when you have a child coming out of that frustration and they come into your space, everybody is game. So we have to be clear then about this process of how do we help one to regulate. It is to be clear about the terrain. And what was mentioned earlier on by Brother Roland was what was powerful about the issue of racial socialization. That we know that two things happen, that when a child has racial socialization, that is that they're aware of the dynamics of racism and oppression in their space, in what's called America, they tend to perform better academically. Somehow we want to move away from the race conversation. No, that's clear. Secondly, we got to deal with the issue of how it impacts how individuals perform on jobs, because they're very clear about how they navigate in certain spaces. And the third thing is that it tends to promote greater marital satisfaction, just simply by knowing the terrain on which you are operating. Our services must have infused within them this knowledge of what it means to be and to become human from a perspective that respects our experience, our condition, and our aspirations.
So I was going to speak, make a comment earlier. Shreveport is not unlike other places where, we have some of the best and most talented people at all levels, but we do have our challenges with efficacy, and that's because we're plagued with identity politics, to be honest with you. And so, we have a lot of people from my perspective.
When you say plagued with identity politics, what does that mean?
So, I have a family last name. My mama did it, my daddy did it. And so, because we represented this area forever, then, we go and we reelect these people. But when you look at the results that they bring to the community, it's dismal, right? And so we have to decide collectively what it is that we want. We need to educate ourselves more, become more familiar with. I don't assume people don't know. So, but, maybe refresh ourselves in terms of who's responsible for what in terms of legislation. We have school board, but actually our state reps and the people at the state legislature, make the rules that the school board has to operate by. But then we need to make sure we have the right people on the school board who understand those rules, right? We need to make sure that we have the right people at the city council level and at the parish commission level. And so it's imperative that if we're going to address this issue, that we have the right people in the right places making decisions that's going to affect and impact all of us.
But I'll say this here. You're correct. You have to have those things. But this is what I often see happen, or don't see happen. And again, understand where I come from. My parents were co-founders of the Civic Club. Didn't go to college. didn't graduate from college, hardworking, had 5 kids, but they cared about their community. And so when they got involved in their community, they then said, okay, we're looking for this and looking for that. So they began to learn, okay, what does the city do? What does the school board do? What does the county do? We're looking for these services. Who do we call? We're looking for this and this and this. What we have to recognize is that if we do not present an agenda to the people that represent us, well, then we're not going to get back what we think we need. Absolutely. So the reason I asked, what do you have and you don't have? See, that's how my brain is sort of just wired that way. You know, when these tragedies happen, folks are like, well, you only responded because of your fraternity brother. I'm like, no. It was a tragic situation. I could not bring her back. I could not bring him back. I could not talk to him. The case in Florida with the vice mayor and her husband could not. I said, so I can't do anything in all these situations. But the question is, what can I do? So I think where we have to be as communities, okay, what can I do? You cannot bring those 8 kids back. Those 2 women are going to have to deal with the trauma of this shooting the rest of their lives. The question then becomes, how can I do all I can to keep the next one from happening? Which now means, if the assessment is these are the gaps in our schools, then we get with the professionals who get with the school folks who then say, what is that you need? And the community then comes back to the school board and say, we need an allocation of $12 million, $15 million, $20 million to hire 30, 60, 50 people, whatever the number is. And here are the numbers. Here's the problem. This is the issue with the state. Number 2 in domestic homicides, laying the whole thing out. So if you don't confront this on the front end, you're going to always confront on the back end. Now, when that happens, it's now community's job to put pressure on the electeds to do their job, and then if they then don't follow through, you then say, well, then we're going to take y'all out at the next election. It's not enough to go to the school board and yell, y'all got to fix this. That's right. There has to be a community-driven plan of action to the school board, to the city council, to the state reps, state senators, and the governor. And so I don't care if he's MAGA, you're still constituents. So a community-driven plan has to also be a part of this.
Yes. Also, we must be inclusive of programs that we know work. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, he said that a child does what is natural until it learns what is normal. What is normal in society? You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, he said that a child does what conducts itself to the norms of the society. He also teaches us, he said that the black man is righteous by nature, but he's been made other than the paradigm shift in full effect when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called for a 1 million-man march. And nearly 2 million of us showed up on that mall. Many of them were gang members, enemies of each other, that swore on that day to put down the guns, to not take another life, to not make another black mother cry. So we've seen the transformation. So we want to just include the Nation of Islam in the conversation of transforming our communities. Take the best of everything that we've discussed today, but don't leave out a big part of what you see working. We're in a process of evolving our people from one stage of development to another.
We're going to hold tight 1 second. I'm going to take a break. There's a hissing in the microphone, so we can get that fixed. So let's go to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, live here from Shreveport. We'll be back in a moment.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
A decade of love, joy, and power. Black Voters Matter is 10 years old, and we are just getting started. This is love with a purpose. This is Black joy in motion. This is unstoppable power. Across campuses, neighborhoods, and back roads, let's go! We show up not just to vote, but to be seen, to be heard, to belong. We ride together, we organize together. We remind each other that our voices matter, because they always have. Black Voters Matter is about more than ballots. It's about housing and healthcare, clean water and living wages, education, reproductive freedom, and dignity. It's about turning pain into action, turning belief into movement, turning community into power. We don't wait to be invited. We bring the energy. We bring the love. We bring the people. Because when Black communities come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. This is how change happens. This is how history moves. We organize, we build, we win.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the JODECI. That's Jodeci. Right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Come on, turn it up. All right, folks, we're back here in Shreveport. Glad to be here. Go ahead. And the panelists, Dad's on Duty. Tell folks your name and what do y'all do?
Craig Lee, co-founder of Dad's on Duty. And ironically, 5 years ago, Roland helped to promote our program once we launched at Southwood High School to respond to the gang violence at Southwood. And we're happy to promote the news that 5 years later, that is not an issue. We've had 3 good principals since 2021. And at this stage in the ball game, what we can report is that when you bring positive male role models into a school, especially at the high school level, but if we start at elementary and junior high and high school, you can now start to change the direction of the thinking, the behavior, the conduct, and the actions of young people in any particular school district.
So how do you see, regarding this issue of domestic violence, the role that y'all can play in reaching these young brothers in the early stage?
It's a very important role, Roland, because I'll give you a prime example. There was a program, and Woodlawn has this program as well, called JAG, Jobs for America's Graduates. They actually have the best program in the city along with Huntington. But in that program, it allows individuals like myself, our chairperson, Mike Morgan, who is a very effective city worker, to come into the school, engage young people in real conversations about life. Because a lot of times the children don't get these conversations from individuals who are not outside of their household. So when you can engage them in real dialogue and they begin to trust you, they now begin to confide in you a variety of different things about relationships. We were able to stop 3 murders back in 2021 based on the fact that we had connected with these children, and so we gathered intel. And when we gather the intel, then we can report that back to the principal. The principal then reports that information to law enforcement, and now you have that active engagement.
Look, you look around this room. Everyone is older. And if we're talking about how do we have an impact on, let's say, 5 to 25, the question then, who are the folks who you're also engaging with in this city where you have peer-to-peer discussions, peer-to-peer conversations? How do you envision reaching and teaching and training these young brothers to deal with their fellow young brothers when it comes to violence, domestic violence, being able to control emotions? And is there any group who's doing a great job of that in the city right now that can be replicated?
Well, I think if you look at the fraternities and some of the mentoring programs that we have, such as the Kappa League and the Lamplighters and the Alpha Esquires, I think that's where it started. I happen to be president of my chapter when we reinstituted the Kappa League in the city.
Oh, yeah, that's cute. Cute little youth group. Yeah.
But one of the things that we wanted to do, is we wanted to make sure that we had a good mixture of young men who we were working with. There definitely was some young men who came from situations where they had to support. Maybe their family had the financial background, but then there were some young men who didn't, and we wanted to make sure that we had a good mix. And then we wanted to make sure that our program met the needs of what they were doing. At the time, the Top Ladies of Distinction, they had the botillion for the boys, and the women would always come to me and say, Mr. Henderson, that's good, but we really want some men to pour in to our boys, and what kind of programs are there to support our boys and where it can come from there, because the mothers are doing it by themselves, right? And so we thought it was prudent that we do that. So I think that that's a place to start. I think, form partnerships. One thing I say to churches is that, you don't have to invent the wheel. There are nonprofits, there are organizations out there. The Boy Scouts of America is a great program for young men. And if you have that at your church, it's structured. You can measure it. It's rewarding. There's training involved. And so you don't have to invent the wheel, but you just need to know where the resources are and then form partnerships with the people that are subject matter experts and to help you in that resolve.
But I'm going to go ahead and say this, and I got no problem with saying it, but let's just be real. The programs that you're talking about, I've spoken to the others around the country. Those are speaking to a certain group of young brothers. And the reality is there are so many other young brothers who are not being reached, not being talked to. And I get cotillions, botillions, I get all of that. But what I'm talking about, we have to create real engagement directly in those neighborhoods with folk who may not show up in ties and jackets. And so what I'm curious is that happening? And if it is, hold on one second, hold on, because it might, you just may not know. Is it happening? And if it is, how do we now expand that?
So Roland, it is happening, and primarily it happens in the youth sports leagues. You take Express Sports, they're one of my clients. They produce 9 NFL football players out of that particular program since 1996. The addition to that can be a cultural etiquette component to that, where you're teaching them how to interact with young girls. But they are actually dealing with the hardcore young people who are coming up in the inner cities. And there are several, and that's really your biggest volunteership of African-American males, because a lot of guys used to play football, basketball, so they're pouring into the young folks. And I remember when Lonnie Bryan and LaWarn Brown told me to just come out. And parents actually, especially mothers, they support their children. And this is an active engagement, but with a little tweaking, kind of like to what Kevin is talking about, the culturally relevant component that deals with etiquette, how you talk to young ladies, how you approach them, these particular things, that can then help.
Turn your phone off, Kappa.
But that could happen tremendously. But what we try to encourage, whether it be the Divine Nine or the Masonic Order, come into the school, because a lot of people are not going to go into the habitat of these young people. They're not going to do it and deal with the gang warfare. The safest place to deal with them is in the school.
Right, but the reason and just follow me here, why I'm going down this line, because just literally how the panel is set up. If we're talking about domestic violence, and we're talking about violence, what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep them from coming to him.
Exactly.
But before they go to him, they're going to go to him.
Exactly.
So what I'm trying to understand is, what are we creating that's here this direction, which means if we're talking about, when I think about anti-violence, anti-gang initiatives in Chicago and other places, where they have former gang members who have created organizations that do that, then what is the missing piece? Is that missing piece creating something of peers, of young men, Chief, you can jump in and speak to this, that then they are going in those places. They are having those discussions where they are, because I think what often happens is we want to be comfortable with the conversation. So y'all come over here and they're not going to come. I'm saying we have to be creating initiatives right where they are, dealing with what they're going through.
I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things, to your point, we had probably about 15 guys who had spent 20 plus years in Angola, and they joined dads on duty. But the issue we faced was getting them into the school based on the regulations, because the school tries to say, if you're a convicted felon,
Hold on. That's my whole point.
Yeah.
If I'm creating a community-based deal, I don't need their permission.
True, but now we deal with logistics. So you got to be able to get them to those places, and now logistics becomes an issue.
Right. So again, I'm understand how I'm seeing this here. Okay. You said lodge.
Mm-hmm.
You said are there community rec centers?
Yes.
Okay. We've said churches.
Yes.
So what has to happen is we have to take what we control.
Oh, I agree.
And say these are going to be our centers to have the conversations. So if y'all are limiting these folks from coming in, gotcha, ain't no problem. We're going to do it over here.
Yes.
But that's just a part of the community infrastructure building.
Yes.
Because, again, it's easy to say we need to be doing it. It's different actually doing it.
Yes.
Chief, you wanted to jump in.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that. We have, here within the city limits of Shreveport, we have taken on an endeavor to do just that, to avail ourselves to the community much more than we had in the past by decentralizing our complete operation, resources, and equipment. Instead of being totally located in one place, we are decentralizing all over town. To give you a great example, there's a model that we are beginning that we think is probably going to be a model for the country. We are building a new facility that's about 80% complete out in South Shreveport, the Cedar Grove community, a community that needs us most, where the tragic event took place. The thing is, we've partnered with a concept called PAL, which is Police Athletic League, which is what most young people recognize. What's unique about this, we are building our facility directly in the middle of a park. We're taking over the park. It is our objective to get to the young people at a young age, to develop those relationships, to be role models so that we won't see them otherwise when something has happened. In that place, transportation, free bus transportation from anywhere in Shreveport to there and back home. We see this as a big, big plus for our community in becoming more embedded within our fabulous community. That's happening as we speak. And we are so thankful to all our other people in public service, the DA's office, our sheriff department, and everyone who serves a purpose in public government to be a part of that. We want to get involved in the young lives of our community before they make some mistakes and errors that's going to cost them the rest of their life. That's happening as we speak.
Thank you. So one of the things, we give up for the Chief, one of the things that we don't want to happen, right, in Washington, D.C., we were doing this work, we're doing interventions with individuals, with youth. And so as a youth was murdered, you get his picture on a T-shirt and it's rest in peace. And then there was this banner as you enter into Southeast D.C. It was a banner that had their names on it. And then some of the children begin to say, do I have to be murdered to be acknowledged? So we have to watch out also that we don't just simply show up when there is in a place that it seems to have the greatest amount of need, because let me say it like this. The place that is good for the harvest is not always good for the planting. So we have to be clear that though a desert may need greenery, there's a place that you begin to plant. And I think that there should be planting all over the space, right? And not simply going to places just because there's a need. And what Brother Roland said is very critical in the spaces that we control. We don't have to go to the school system. However, children are showing up at the schools because school is compulsory. However, we need to also have spaces that we control where we are controlling not only the location, but the content, the information, the process of transformation, right? And that's a gradual process. So we want to, and here's a hurtful part about it. If the prevention program actually works, we really don't know until we sit on the backside, right? We only, so when there's an event that takes place, then we run to it. But if you prevented it from happening, you really don't know that it was prevented because it didn't happen until you see the numbers that Brother Roland is saying on the backside. Is there a decrease in homicide? Is there a decrease in IPV? Is there an increase in other behaviors such as a proper school behavior, right? That's critical. But we don't want to attend only when it's negative. We want to control the space. We want to be able to put pressure on the populace to be able to say that we make the change and we don't wait for the change to happen. We make the change happen.
All right, so we're going to do, we're going to take some of your questions. We're not going to do the line stuff, so here's what's going to happen. One on this side over here, I need one person who has a question to stand over here with Kevin. One person on this side, you have a question over here. Then after those two ask a question, then the next two folk can walk up. So we have some ground rules. First of all, we don't need you touching the microphone. We got it, okay? Keep your hands in your pockets. Assume the position. Do not touch the microphone. 2, there are questions. No sermonettes, no speeches, no benedictions, no dissertations, questions. So we'll start. So who has the first question? Come on up, slide out that way. Stand right here. If you have a question on that side, come stand right next to Kevin. He's going to stand right next to the pop-up. Come on. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Francine Monroe Brown, and my question is, what can I do as a community activist to communicate to my community that this has to be a community-driven plan? We cannot depend on anyone else to help our communities, just us. When I was growing up in Eden Gardens, the parents in the community, we had less, but we had organizations because the parents were willing to take up time. We had Mr. Pickens, who produced professional baseball players. We had Coach Pennyware. There were people throughout our community, and we took care of ourselves. So I just want to encourage everyone to get their mindsets in today's society. Let's move forward, and let's take care of our own community.
All right, so I got a question for you. So you said you're a community activist. Do you have an organization, or you're part of an organization?
Yes, I founded Seniors First, and I'm the executive director. We help seniors to integrate back in their communities, to become liaisons and leaders in their own neighborhoods. We also help seniors in college and seniors in high school. So we touch those milestone areas.
Okay. So in your program, how are you bringing in next generation to help with that, and then be a part of this training we're talking about in terms of how do they have conflict resolution?
Well, presently, I have something coming up on July the 10th right here in Shreveport. I'll be working with the city of Shreveport, and we are going to be catching children at much younger ages. Because by the time they get...
Hold on. What's the thing on July 10th?
Hoop Don't Shoot.
Okay, and what is that?
Hoop Don't Shoot is a annual program that we have where we pull in children and we connect them with organizations to provide guidance for them beyond the basketball and the online game tournament.
Okay, so if somebody's out there and they want to participate, how do they reach you?
They can reach me at 318-230-6697 or seniorsfirstplan@gmail.com.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. Kevin.
Name and what's your question?
My name is Willie White, and I live over here in Allendale. My question is, besides athletes and athletics, can we be more diversible? And if so, what programs can we start? What programs do y'all have in mind that we can start up? My thing is agriculture back in our communities.
Okay, so now I got a question for you. What do you do?
What I do? I'm apparel at a school here in Shreveport, and I'm also a gardener.
Gotcha. What organization are you involved in?
Right now, I'm with the Front Porch Ministry in my neighborhood at St. Paul Methodist Church over here in Allendale. And we're starting the Front Porch Ministry. It's going to have different components to it. We're going to be doing ministry in garden, ministry in feeding, and educating our people at an early age about tapping into their gifts and talents and start developing.
So how are y'all reaching people who are not in the church?
Who are not in the church? Recently we had the citywide cleanup. So we went to different streets within that area.
No. What I mean is the initiative you just talked about. If you want people to be involved in that initiative, how are y'all reaching out to people to say, this is what we're doing, and we want you involved in this program?
Well, right now we're having meetings, not just only meetings. We're gathering within the community and spreading out, going from door to door right now.
Got it.
Within that area and stuff like I said, we did the citywide cleanup. We didn't just do right at that location. We went down the streets no one would normally go down.
Gotcha.
You know, people with beer cans in the yard, getting out there, picking up their beer cans with them. We went out there picking up trash, and, they started tagging along.
Right. So the ministry that y'all launching, when is that launching?
When is it? I don't know the tentative date right now.
Okay. And since you've been going door to door, what's your target number? How many people in the community that are in that certain radius around your church that you want to be involved in the program?
Well, I like to target like 10 right now. We got guys to play dominoes. We got 2 barbershops right there and on Looney Street. So like I said, I want to serve with the people who I feel like this mostly overlooked.
Gotcha. So the reason I asked you all those questions, because you just answered your own question.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No. Again, I want you to understand. The reason I asked the questions, because you answered your own question. One of the greatest mistakes that, and I've seen this in churches all across the country. What happens is we have programs that are only internal, they're not external. And so if there's a church here, church, mosque, whatever you want, anybody here, what they should be doing is they should be drawing a circle around the church and saying, this is the 0.05, 0.10, 0.25 radius. And we're going to, what you just said, go door to door and then knock on those doors and say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're providing. Doesn't matter if they're not church members. What then happens is, then they now may realize, wait a minute, this is a church that's actually doing something. So your ministry outreach may end up causing them to show up on Sunday. So the problem that we often do is we like to talk macro. So when you said citywide, the reason I wanted to ask more questions because you brought it door to door. So the only way we have to go micro macro, not macro micro. So the issue that we're talking about here, how do we reach people? So we're talking about a Kappa program, an Alpha program. How do we expand those things? We have to say, no, we're going to go from 5 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 60. You have to build it that way. One of the biggest mistakes is when we can get everybody involved. You're not going to get everybody involved. But it has to be a methodical build, micro to macro. So the question you ask is exactly what y'all should be doing. And a component of that should be, you're talking about gardening or whatever, as we said, conflict resolution. Kevin, what did you say? You called it, we've been talking about regulating emotion. Yes. These should be things that are part of the program you're talking about, because the folk who commit domestic violence, they're in churches, they're in fraternities, they're in other groups. We just don't talk about that part of it in our programming. All right? All right, good job.
Thank you.
What's your question? You walking up like a straight OG. I mean, you blue hat, blue suit. Come on, you coordinated. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My question is to the panel. It's about mental illness. I have a family member suffering with that. He goes in and out of his system. Go to jail, come back out, go right back in. I talk to him, talk to the coroners, I talk to the nurses up there, I talk to them all. It's like, it's stated it happened under this administration.
That administration been gone a long time ago. How can we get all of these people on the panel, all these people out here that's in position to come together and work together on one accord for a purpose? Is there a body like that in place? I mean, that you could reach them?
Now, I'll throw it to the panel because part of the question he asked, I mean, the brother who shot and killed the 8 kids, he was in the VA for a week. And he kept saying, told his mama, I can't overcome these demons. So part of this issue, and Chief, maybe you can speak to the DA, part of this issue is, especially with the massive cuts that we've had in mental health, how do we deal with somebody who actually went through a system but came back out and then ended up committing this sort of heinous crime?
Excellent question. And I'm of the opinion totally that the judicial system sometimes fail. And when I say that, I'm talking about incarceration. Incarceration is not always a method to prevent further things from happening because there's not much of a component for rehabilitation. I hear exactly what you said, and that was some of the information I was getting from the people who knew him that very morning of the incident. I don't have a good answer for that. If medical attention had been sought, he had been going through professional therapy of, the people with doctors behind their name. I honestly don't know what else could have been done. I don't know.
Go right ahead.
One of the issues you have in dealing with mental health is people get medicated, okay, and then there's no one to make sure that they either take the medicine,
right,
or they decide the side effects of the medicine. They don't want the side effects, so they don't take the medicine. Or what we see a lot of is they have a substance abuse problem, and they have the medication and the substance abuse, and it doesn't work. So, as Wayne said, there's only so much we can do within the system when they've been treated, supposedly, and released and on medication. Then there has to be some way to make sure they stay on that medication. And you got to hope that they're on the right medication, because often in mental health, they're not on the right medication because it takes a while for them doctors to figure out what medication they need to be on to get them into a normal situation.
So to finish your point, you said, we almost come together. Absolutely. But that cannot happen unless we're working through organizations that are dealing with this stuff every day. Again, state policy is different from county, different from state policy, parish policy, city policy, school board policy. That's how we have to be using our organizations. And so what I keep saying to people, if you are operating as an individual, understand you need to be aligning with an organization where the organization is putting pressure, because a sole person is not going to be able to do it. But if you have one organization, a collection of organizations, now all of a sudden that changes the conversation.
Let me do this right here, right, Roland. So a year ago to date, family, I was a psychologist with the VA. And my role at the VA, was around cultural trauma and veterans. I say a year to date because it was on a Wednesday. I got a phone call that says Friday is your last day, because I was using the word culture. And so I had over 50 men and women on my caseload who did not get a chance to close out because a decision was made by someone else because of the discourse was around cultural trauma. And we want to be clear about this because certain services are available, but they're not consistent. So what I'm telling you is not what I heard. This ain't nobody else's story but my story. And this story is that you get a call on Wednesday, and I want to be clear about this one, Brother Roland, talk about emotional regulation. If it had not been for me going to present at a conference on intervention, I'm not quite sure how I would return back home that day, based on what I heard from the VA. So just because I'm a psychologist, that doesn't mean that I'm about to lose my mind. I get on edge as well. Does that make sense? So we have to be clear that sometimes the services, that's what I'm saying, all services, no, I say ain't. I ain't saying not. Ain't good services. What's your name?
I'm Annie Pearl McCullough, and I'm assistant principal at CMCTS, which is a feeder school into Dr. Smith's school, Woodlawn High School. And so really my question, and I don't even know if it's really a question, but what is your take on addressing mindsets of the parents? Because I feel like us at the school level, we're doing our best to instill in the children what the lesson is that we know that will take them on to the ladder, but it's like we're fighting mindsets. And so we want the parents to be involved, but how do you address parental apathy where you want them in the school, but they won't come? You know, you want all these different organizations, but there's no exposure because we're a neighborhood school. We only have 358 students on our campus, and most of them are impoverished. So how do you address mindset of parents that trickles down to our children?
Good question.
And Kev, her question is the most important aspect because what we have is what you just said. I have a saying, the absence of spirituality and right culture is the foundation for all negative, toxic, evil, demonic thought, behavior, conduct, and action. You can pour into these children in a righteous way at school, but then they have to go home, right? And so how do we actually do it? Because you can't legislate spirituality. You can't legislate culture. You can't legislate morality. You can't legislate ethics. So then the focus is on, what is the teacher doing? Y'all are doing your job in most instances. But we have a fractured situation in the home. And that's why I said you have to have people who are willing to become village fathers and village mothers inside of the school and outside of the school to wrap around these children, because other than that, they're going to be lost. It's just the bottom line. So our thing with Dads on Duty is it takes an empowered village to empower our children. And if we don't get more village fathers, people willing to be village fathers and be village mothers, we're not going to be able to help them because they're going back. And the point you just made, the principal at my former alma mater, Fair Park, which is now a junior high school, he said the same exact thing. They can't get the parents to get involved. So now the community has to get involved, but the challenge is I, my, me, the Eurocentric mindset of I'm taking care of my child, they're on their own. But now when little Ray comes and beats your child up or kills your child, now you want the community to be involved. That's the challenge.
So I'm going to say this here, and this is really anywhere. One of the things that we have to do is what I call community resource assessment. We have lots of problems, and we want to address all the problems, but one group, one person can't address all the problems. I'm a firm believer in what lane are you in. So when we're talking about how do we change our communities, one of the things that most of us have never done, we've never actually done an assessment of what's at our disposal. So this again, and because I'm literally writing this book that's going to drop next year, Dr. King said in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? He said there are 4 institutions that are primed to liberate Black America. These are the Negro Church, the Negro Press, the Negro fraternities and sororities, and Negro professional and business organizations. He said, but neither of them have fully committed themselves to the liberation of our people. Then he critiqued each one. And so what we have to recognize is that we have massive capacity in our communities. We have a ton of organizations. We have a ton of nonprofits. The question is, do we even know what exists? So, if I'm you in Shreveport, I'm sitting here going, okay, who are the anti-violence prevention lane? Who's in that lane? What are the groups in that lane? What are the groups that specifically deal with black women? What are the groups that specifically deal with black men? What are the groups that specifically deal with economic development? What are the groups that deal with housing? What are the groups that deal with mental health? Now, all of a sudden, you now have a real assessment of what's at your disposal. So if she says, I'm looking to do this, I guarantee you there's already an institution that exists, but she don't have to start a new nonprofit. The nonprofit is waiting for her to show up. But we got to be able to say, go here and go here. And so if we're talking about how do you move forward, that then means, and someone mentioned earlier, Million Man March, really what should come out of this really is the model of the local organizing committees that came out of the Million Man March. So what should come out of this is, all right, people who showed up here care about this issue, care about this community. So now it's like, okay, how do we now harness the people? So here's the first thing, and I'll ask this question to Kevin or your sister or anybody else. Has anyone collected the data of all the people in this room? Right there is our first mistake. It is the greatest mistake that we make as black people. We call meetings, we gather, we have no idea who's in the room. We have the event and they leave, and then no one knows who showed up. So, that's first. So, see, he pulled the legal pad out, but we're gonna make it easier. So, Kevin, yes, give folks an email. Give folks an email, and the people in the room, or if you are watching from Shreveport, send to the email your name, your email, your number, and the area that you would like to work on. So what then happens is you've got more than 100 people here. Now you have a database to work from to say, okay, more than 100 of y'all showed up on April 30th. You're going to meet in 2 weeks, and each one of you have to bring one person. That means that your next meeting will have 200 people. And then when you say your next meeting, I need the 200 to bring one. You're then going to have in 1 month, you're going to have 400 people prepared to now mobilize and organize. That's how we have to approach this. So what's the email?
Email address is Mawata357.
Oh, Lord, yeah. Hold on. You want to spell that.
I'm going to give it to you. Mawata357. Hold tight. Hold tight. Listen fast. And I talk faster. All right, so Mawata, capital, no, not capital. M as in Michael, W as in water, A as in apple, T as in Tom, A as in apple. Mawata, M as in Michael, W as in water, A as in apple, T as in Tom. Mawata, MWATA 357 at gmail.com. Mawata357 at gmail.com. Why is that critical to the conversation? Because my birth name is Kevin. That is Irish. My last name is English, Washington. I've taken the liberty to move from that, from one space to another, and so the name is legally Mawata Sankara. Is that making sense? I could tell you more about that as well, but WASA is a whole, no, so MWATA. I like that, Brother Roland. You said it. 357 at gmail.com. We can say a whole lot of names. We trip on stuff.
Now, I'm going to give you a second one, and if you email me, I'm going to forward it to him. This easy. Roland at blackstarnetwork.com.
See, now, Roland.
See, I keep it simple. So follow me here. I need y'all to understand. I need y'all to understand. Bishop William Barber hit me up a month and a half ago, and he said, hey, I want to get 1,000 alphas. We want to teach them to organize and mobilize for voting. We put it out there. We hit the 1,000, but we probably had another 1,000 people who were not in the fraternity, men and women who followed up. This is what, I'm telling you, this is the biggest mistake that we often make. We meet and we gather, but we don't organize and mobilize. So the data is critically important. So
how hard is that right there, y'all? Look at that. Look at that. MWATA 357. There's a reason for that.
At gmail.com.
That's all.
So all I want you to do, you just put Shreveport in the subject line. Your name. It's going to be your email, your cell, social media, whatever. Now, as y'all go from here and now begin to organize, you'll now have a database of the people to begin to work from and build from. Question. We're going to dig. This is the last 2 questions here. You got a question over there? These are the last 3 questions. Go.
Yes, Roland, thank you for having me. I'm just concerned, just like the young lady was, about the situation in her school and all regarding the parents and everything. Coming back to my mind and all, when I'm growing up with my grandparents before, it was a whole lot of other things more instilled in us at that time. Our parents were the guiding forces. We would obey them. We would listen to them. We would learn from them. A lot of young ladies and young men now, their mindset is not even, it's still a child. And yet they're raising children themselves.
Right. And so?
So the question is, what I'm trying to state is, the beginning point, the first point is we got to start at home. Before anybody thinks about mental health and all, it's got to be a family figure to start in
working with. And No. Follow me here. How old are you?
I'm 68.
You're 68 years old. And this is what people need to understand. I grew up, both my parents, I've been married 59 years in June. You're dealing with a child today that is born into a social media world where the moment they're born, they're born to a social media world, okay? So all of a sudden, you have a 3rd grader who is being bullied by classmates in social media. And those classmates have people around the country who follow them. So now that child is getting DMs. That child is getting attacked with what they're wearing and how they look. So the parent has no idea. So you now don't understand why your child is withdrawn, why your child is angry and emotionally upset. You don't even realize it's because they're dealing with something that you have no idea about. So you being 68 have no idea about that world. And so it's hard for, like I'm 57, I raised 6 of my nieces. It's hard for us to understand what life is like for a young person today because their world is not our world. So what we have to do is we got to, yes, how we grew up was one thing. I have to accept the world that they're living in and now come up with solutions that apply to their world today. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And so we can draw from how we grew up, but I got to understand where they are. And so the point is, if we're not having dialogue with them to understand where they are, what they're dealing with, then we're just going to be sitting and talking past one another. We're not going to get to the solution. So we got to be communicating with them where they are. Question here, the last question here.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Hoover. I am 21 years old, and I am representing the youth, not speaking from a distance, but in proximity. And so my question is, as a 21-year-old minister, social media influencer, and advocate, are you all willing to collaborate with youth like myself to create pathways to promote continuity and empowerment for our community and combat surface-level solutions for deeper issues to prevent reoccurrence?
All right, I'll ask you a question. What What are you currently working on to address these issues? In what group?
So I pastor an online church called Hoover Ministries that's organically grown about 7,300 followers. In addition to God and Trust with Influence to reach about 1,300,000 people through Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and Facebook. I advocate as a vessel, and so anytime that I'm speaking on an issue, I'm not speaking from a place of confusion. Like my mother, for instance, is a victim of domestic violence.
Got it.
So with this issue that we've just experienced, it hit me personally, and so I was able to create a 25-minute statement on YouTube and post it for my audience to see. In addition to that, I realized that I cannot just speak about these issues without addressing men's mental health. And so I am aware that it is going to take somebody like myself to reach people my age, in my generation, with the assistance of established nonprofit organizations that are willing to work and collaborate with me on these efforts.
But hold up.
Yes, sir.
But you said you speak on the issues.
Yes, sir.
But how are you organizing around the issue?
So I build events. So I work and collaborate with people all across the world, and we have one of the ones we did was an event called Skating for the Savior, and I was reaching youth from the ages of 5 to 17 years old, and we taught and discipled them and equipped them with resources, and we even gave some money and a few things.
One-time event?
It was a one-time event, yes, sir. I just started my online church about 6 months ago.
No.
Yes, sir.
No. But I want you to follow what I'm saying here.
Yes, sir.
There's a difference between speaking,
yes, sir,
and organizing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you said you're reaching all the people around the world.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But do you know who you're reaching? Have you broken the data down on what countries, what states, what cities they're in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how are you now communicating with people who are following you to create the organizations or the groups in those cities to address this very issue?
So my priority demographic is the youth. I realize that analytically it's ages from 13 to 25
That's
years
fine.
old.
That's
right.
fine. This is not
Yes,
a question
sir.
of age.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a question of organization.
Right.
Because understand, I was in the Junior Knights of Peter Claver, junior division of the world's largest black Catholic organization. I was a state leader, national leader when I was 14. Age is not the issue. It's organization. So what I'm saying is, so you have this following. How are you now taking that following and going beyond speaking to them, but having them organize where they are to address these issues, where you are, in essence, creating those different entities in each one of the cities? Are you doing that?
I came to this mic exactly for that.
Okay, and
Yes,
that's
sir.
what. And so,
Yes,
so my
sir.
point is, you don't have to ask for collaboration. You should be creating the entity yourself
Yes, sir.
with the reach that you have, and now say, we've created this. Now we can bring on other people and now collaborate.
Yes, sir.
One of the greatest mistakes that we make, and I'll say this, that young people always make. A lot of young people are waiting for somebody to hand them the baton versus just starting off running. And so what I'm saying is, you create where you are, how in your grouping here. You create it, so then when you come to the table, you say, this is what I've created, this is how many different groups I have, how many different chapters, X number of cities, this is what we're doing online. Now, who wants to now partner with us?
Yes, sir.
That's how you take your following. Because remember, you have right now followers.
Yes, sir.
No, take it back. Right now you have fans.
Family for me.
No. No. I need
Yes,
you
sir.
to listen to what I'm saying. How many people you said you have?
About 1.3 million.
Gotcha. You have 1.3 million fans. I have 5 million. But I've had 47,709 donors to my show. Those are followers. Fans are not followers.
Good point.
So you may have you can throw that number out, but if you ask any pastor of a church, they don't measure members by individuals, they do by families.
Yes, sir.
So it's not I got 10,000 members. No, I got 2,500 families. So what I'm saying is, you have to take your fans and now convert them to followers. So you're speaking to them, but now you need to organize them around the issues we're talking about. And then when you do that, now you have a body of people through organization to now be able to achieve the issues. That's your homework.
Build their own table. Yes, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Question.
First of all, thank you for coming here. We appreciate you here and putting on this event and our panel. My question is to restore funding to a national model initiative when I was a commissioner. It was called Swag Nation USA. Save with amazing grace, she wants a gentleman, and style with American glory. To stop sagging, start swagging. We had a female and ethic academy trainer that dealt with most of the things that you talked about: conflict resolution, anger management, crime, social issues, how to deal with police when you get out your car. We had psychology and sociology that did an evidence-based study initiative, and we were tracking our young boys and girls that were involved in the program. We started out with like 100,000, so we were trying to get more. The problem is, do we really want to put the money at and be proactive, or we want to be reactive? Because this was a national model, the National Association of County Commissioner awarded with a National Achievement Award as one of the best programs in America.
Okay, hold up. Hold up. The program you're talking about, how many cities was it in?
How many kids?
How many cities?
It started right in Shreveport.
Okay, started in Shreveport. How long did it last?
It lasts about 4 or 5 years.
Gotcha. Who funded it?
The county did. The parish commission did.
Gotcha. How much was it?
100,000.
All right. So do you still have the model, the curriculum of the program?
Yeah, I still have the concept and the model. Yeah, we do.
And so when have you last presented it to new parish leaders?
We could talk about that. I like to talk about
No. You answer my question. When did you said you had it. Yeah. And so it ended, right?
This is not a story I can talk about right here on the panel about it.
But you walked up to come into this microphone. So if you're going to walk up in a public meeting and talk about a program being reinstated, you can't say you can't talk about the program that you just brought up that I ain't never heard of.
Well, let me say this to you. There was a certain sheriff years ago. He was the sheriff of crime. He was the sheriff of the incarceration. We would have opportunity to participation to keep education. So we had
No. Follow me here. I understand what happened then. If you're telling me that was a program that was effective, that worked then, I'm saying how you partner with other folk to put it back on the table to get it funded.
Well, I would like to talk to you about why it's not funded.
No. Bruh, follow me here. No. I'm being very serious here. This is one of the greatest mistakes that we often make when we meet. Shh, 1 second. This is one of our greatest mistakes when we meet. We spend a lot of time on the problem and little time on the solution. What I'm saying is, if you are saying there was a program that worked, that was successful, that cost $100,000, and it's no longer being funded, turn around. You've got a group of people sitting in the room who clearly came here prepared to address the issue. So now I'm saying take that concept, partner with these very people, go to the same body and say, fund this to deal with the issues that we are facing so we don't have the next tragedy.
If you're not in the seat, you can't fund it unless you're elected.
See, right now, you just missed it. When the people go to the political people know, hold up, those are voters talking to me. And then if I don't do what voters say do, I'm not going to be sitting in this seat. So what I'm saying is, stop saying what you can't do and turn around and partner with these people to do what you just said do. Okay? Yes, sir. All right.
We want to give a special shout out to Mount Canaan Church. Give it up for Mount Canaan Church for allowing us to be here, Baptist Church. They were able to turn on a pivot thanks to Brother Bogan and Scoot Nim and everybody that pulled this together in this space. We want to make sure that we acknowledge them. Thank you to Pastor Oliver for allowing us to be in this space. This has been a space of activism, of movement. As you all know, that the late Pastor Harry Blake was not only an activist, but he was one person rode a horse into a church and severely beat him in that church for standing up to liberate black and brown folks in this space. Drug him out the church. They had to take him to another state to be able to get his medical treatment. So you were in a space of sacred grounds of activism. So thank you.
Let me thank everybody for coming out. When Kevin said he wanted to do this, I said absolutely, it's important because whenever one of these tragedies happens, national media, and look, I spent 6 years at CNN. National media comes in, does the story, they put people on the air, but they never deal with the folk on who are left to deal with the after effects of tragedies. And one of the things that we have been doing in the past couple of weeks is having extensive, deep, real conversations, not listening to critics who are mad and upset. And we've been focusing on our experts. It amazes me to listen to black people say black men need to get help. And then we put the very people on the air who are the ones who offer help, and black folk don't want to listen to the people who are giving advice. And I'm like, but that's what they're there for. And so what we have to do is we have to be utilizing our resources in a completely different way. And so that's why we're here. Tomorrow we're going to be in Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Trump is sending those white Afrikaners there to farm that historic black city. So we're broadcasting from there. But that's really what our role also in black-owned media has to be. The reality is, we saw this with the Supreme Court decision yesterday, the Louisiana versus Calais decision. Like, this on us. We have to recognize that this is a moment where we have to be using our collective power. April 3rd, 1968, when Dr. King gave his last sermon at Mason Temple, he said, black people individually are poor, yet collectively represent one of the largest economies in the world. And he talked about the collective. And part of the problem is that we love talking about the collective. One of our greatest mistakes is we always are waiting for group consensus. So what happens is we'll say, well, we invited 100 leaders and 15 showed up, and we'll spend the 2 hours complaining about the 85 who didn't show up as opposed to the 15 who did. So what I want each one of you to do is just look to your left, then look to your right, then look behind you, and then look in front of you. And I want you to realize is that if everything that we've talked about, the starting point of any movement starts with a moment. There has never been a single movement that did not start with a one person saying, hey, we need to do this thing. And so the question now is, after today, after you've gathered here, it's now in your hands to now take this thing and run with it. The reality is, you may look at 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now and see a dramatic decrease in domestic violence in this city, a dramatic increase in parental involvement. You might see a dramatic increase in resources because a group of people chose to gather in a room on April 30th, 2026 to say, enough is enough. What can we do? Not I as an individual. And so now it's upon you to now do the work after this. I can't do it. I can amplify, had him on the show, talk about what they were doing. I know what we can do. But I'm telling you, our history tells us this. When black people use our collective power, it then leads to our collective resources, our collective knowledge, and we're working and leaning on one another, we can do incredible things. We can do things that have transformed the world. But that cannot happen if we don't take a single meeting and now do the next and the next and do the organization and do the planning and do the mobilizing and hit all the various efforts. And last point I'll make is this here. If there are some people in this city who do not want to participate, ignore them. I talk all the time about the book of Nehemiah. When Nehemiah surveyed the wall had crumbled. Nehemiah surveyed the damage, came up with a plan, went back to the people and the people said, let us rebuild. If you read that, there were haters. They said, y'all cannot rebuild that wall. Nehemiah said, ignore them, keep building. When they made progress, the haters said, oh, we got to stop y'all because y'all actually about to build this thing. I'm telling you right now, you are going to face some haters in Shreveport who are not going to want you to take this and turn it into a movement. What you must do is ignore the haters and keep building. And the last part, which is what I love about when you read Nehemiah, when you read it, they have the names of the people who built the portions of the gate. Meaning the people who didn't do any work, their names were never called. And so the point here is you build where you are, you do the work, you don't sweat who gets the credit, because the reality is everybody who built the wall, all their names were mentioned. You can do this. You can achieve this. You can completely transform what's happening in this city. That can become a model for the state. It can become a model for the country. But the people have to actually get to building. So we appreciate y'all coming out. Dr. Kevin Washington, we appreciate it as well. Don't forget, folks who are watching, don't forget to support the work that we do. Again, we have plans to travel all around the country this year. Y'all want to support what we do via Cash App. Our goal is very simple. I told you, we've had 47,000 folks who become donors of our program. And so if you want to support the work that we do via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Also for credit cards, checks, and money orders, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003, 7-0196. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Also, folks out there, I've seen y'all send me photos. I appreciate it. Y'all want to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, shopblackstarnetwork.com. And while you're there, we created a marketplace of black-owned businesses. Y'all know I believe in supporting black-owned businesses. We've got more than 50 black-owned businesses with their products on our marketplace. I mean, you name it, whether it's STEM dolls, whether it's skin care, whether it's makeup lines, you name it. All sort of products on there. These are all black-owned companies, and when you buy from our marketplace, you're supporting them and supporting our show as well. Control room, y'all should be scrolling on the website, not the static photo right here. Y'all should also be showing a shot of the products that are in my control room. So I don't understand why I'm not synced. Thank you very much. Y'all late. Y'all should have been showing that. All those products you see right here, these are black-owned companies that are on shopblackstarnetwork.com. Download the app, fan base. Follow me at Roland S. Martin every noon Eastern. Listen, check out. And coming up next, Dr. Ebony Hilton, her show, Second Opinion with Dr. Ebony Hilton. That's our weekly health show, talking about the critical issues facing our community in health. And so we appreciate that. Shreveport, thank you so very much for having us here. We appreciate it. Folks, I'll see y'all tomorrow from Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Holla!